Hey guys, so welcome to this video. This is one that I'm really excited to do because I'm gonna do a real-time walkthrough of what it looks to do just a very basic bookkeeping system with pen and paper. And this is a system that, as simple as it looks, it took me a while to finesse this for my husband's landscaping business. So I worked for years and years working through the way that he tracked things, and I recognized that it was more difficult for me to work around his system than for me to create a simple system for him to use and for me to access all of his information in a very clear way, so that every month I just do a little bit of work, and then at the end of the year for tax prep, things are like that. So I am going to show you some of the things that I use, and then I'll do a really quick run through of how I do things with his business and what I'm using to do that. And then you should be able to set that system up for yourself. There are a lot of things on bookkeeping that I feel like go beyond this, but for a super simple with like a small number of transactions every month, this should work for almost any business. So I'm going to show you really quickly basically the two things that I need. And the first one, and I'm going to try to hide the important stuff, is a bank statement. So what I do every month for Charlie's business is I print out the bank statement, and this is 2 pages of transaction, and then any checks that he's written or deposits he made, the bank actually makes a little view of those and puts them there for me. So that's nice. The one thing that I will say about this though is that those deposit transactions that he makes at the bank, I can see the total and I can see the day, but I can't see a breakup of what that was made up of. So maybe it was $50 cash and 2 checks from different customers, and it's not going to break that down for me. So one thing that I'll say about this bookkeeping system that may not meet your needs as well is I don't have this broken down by customer, because I don't need to do that for year-end tax prep. So my husband likes to keep track of who has paid him and how much, and I let him take care of that because that's what he enjoys, that part of it, or is better at that part of it for himself. And so that's not part of the bookkeeping that I do for him. But I need the bank statement. That's the first thing that I need, is the bank statement. Yep. And the second thing that I need is my blank copy of where all this goes. So this is not exactly a profit and loss statement as much as it is just an expenses and an income statement. And this really helps me dive into all of the expenses. I can write little notes here if I need to about what to ask him about, and I can tally up amounts. So I have the expenses here and the income here, and then I can quickly calculate the profit. And that's really important. So if you were doing a profit and loss statement, a profit or loss statement, then that number here would basically tell you that. Now, the third thing that I didn't really mention, I will not go in depth on this, is on the back of this piece of paper, I have already printed out the tax categories that we use for his business. And these are things that are very specific to his landscaping business. If you had a photography business, it might be different. There might be utilities or rent if you have a storefront, things like that. And that's really what you would want a bookkeeper for. You want to make sure that this is really specific to your business, so that all the expenses that you track here can then be tallied up and put onto the back or on a separate piece of paper for your tax categories, so you have all your write-off numbers ready to go. So I'll show you just a little bit about that, but that's something that's, like I said, is really specific. That would be what a bookkeeper would be really good at for you. Okay, so I'm just going to turn the camera around, show you what I do. I'm just going to write things down, and then at the end I'll kind of show you what that process looks like once it's done. Okay, so before I go much farther, all I'm gonna say is that the first thing that I did is I ran through this statement from the bank, and I just wrote down all the numbers that were income or deposits into his account. And so all I've done is put that into the income box of this profit and loss statement. I've tallied it up, and I've got my income at the top, and now I'm gonna go through the expenses. Okay, so all I've done so far is income is totaled up, expenses are totaled up, and I've made some notes of some things and expenses that I either have to ask a question about or may not apply directly to the business. And this is something that I'll just add a little blurb about. It's so good to have this bank statement completely be business and separate from your personal account. If you were having to go through your personal bank statement and mark through all the ones that were not business transactions or the ones that were, let's say you went to Walmart for 2 different things this month, one for one, a couple of things that you wanted to get for your kid's Halloween costume, and then another that was a business transaction, you might have forgotten which one was which. And although it might be just pennies of difference, having these things really clear in a separate bank statement is really, really, really helpful. It also makes sure that you're only using your business banking account for business transactions and you don't dip into there for personal funds. And that way you're not going over or having overdraft fees or anything like that. That could set you back at a profit standpoint. So all I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take the income, which I've already marked and tallied up, and I am going to subtract the expenses. And I am going to take that total and write it all the way up at the very top of the piece of paper where it says profit. So I'm gonna note that here. And then really that's it. So all I've done, expenses tallied up, income tallied up, and then subtracted those and put it over here where it says profit. Sorry, I had to scratch out a month there that I used the wrong thing for. There are also other things that I've listed here, like we take out money for tithes, so I put that down. I'm going to tally up the tax savings that he should have and transfer into his tax savings account, which is in the same account that we use for his checking. And really that's the wrap up of the month. And so the last thing that I'm gonna do, and this is really where a bookkeeper can become really helpful for you, especially if you've already done this part, is these tax categories on the back. I'm gonna go through the transactions for this month, which aren't a lot because grass is slowing down. And I'm gonna go through and say, were any of these specific to a vehicle? Were any of these specific to communications? So for instance, generally at the end of the year, I look at communications and say, our personal cell phone bill. He uses that throughout the month for his business communication. So I'm gonna go through and mark that, but there might not be any transactions for that for this month. If there's not a transaction for it, all I do is draw a line through, and that way I know that I've looked through and seen if there's an expense for that. And anything else that's on here, I'm gonna go back and look at the expenses on the front and just make a note of what those tallies are. And then I'll show you how all of this comes together for the end of the year. Is I take an annual profit and loss statement. And what I do, let's see if I can just show you the top kind of here, is I'm gonna go through every single month and write down all the totals that I have from my monthly sheet. So monthly sheet is where I do all my work. And then I put those totals here so that at the very end of the year, all it takes is adding those numbers up and I've got all my tax prep ready to go and enter into the computer. And this is a system that I think works really well if you're still small and you're still building up your practice or your business, and you can kind of manage this if you take one day a month, and this video is rounding out at about 15 minutes. So if you take that amount of time, then you can really make things easy on yourself before you might need any help from a bookkeeper or an accountant or anything like that. So I hope that you have found this video helpful and it helps you be successful in your business. If so, then give me a like or a share, and I'll see you guys next time.